think that's where the term on brand comes from. I think there are identities to a brand. So if your brand is luxury versus accessibility versus being modern versus being classic, then you try to make your social media, your marketing, your aesthetic all fit what your brand is. So I think you're trying to be authentic to your brand. And so on brand and off brand is, I think, a measure of basically, are you being authentic to what your brand is?
And well, here's the other thing. Your brand isn't anything. Your brand is just, a construction of social media posts, perhaps by a team. So I guess what authenticity in humans is, if not a moral issue, there's something like spiritual about it. Like there is a center of you or a core or a real, it appears.
Yeah, an authentic brand is certainly a bit more of a construction.
And it's a practical choice. It's not like, look, there's nothing moral about.
Well, Patagonia's brand is to be conscious of the environment and try to make things that last a long time and are reusable. And so I think there could be a meeting where someone said, hey, we could make a lot more money if we cut costs on these products. No one would really know. Let's just make them cheaper and margins would grow. And then I think the authentic on-brand thing to do is for the people on the team to go, hey, you're new here. That's not how we work. We aren't going to sacrifice quality. We want someone to buy this backpack once and use it for 20 years.
Yeah.
And so they take the profit hit to do that. And I think that would be authentic for the brand.
But that isn't a good thing because it's on brand. That's good because the values that they have previously said were on the brand are good values to have, like recycling and reusing stuff.
Sure.
So like if a brand that was a crappy brand, I don't know, like Hugo Boss making suits for the Nazis and stuff, like decided to go become inauthentic and stop selling.
Well, I don't know that authenticity is always good. Like if you're a pedophile or a serial killer, you don't necessarily want to be authentic to your inner urges.
Well, now we're going, this is not where I expected to go. I think that what the authenticity that I'm describing was like that part of the sorry. Was my moral sense of what happened that this was a wrong thing and I will change it in the future and I intend to? I guess that can occur on a brand level. Like you can make sweeping, lasting changes and pivot.
Tylenol did, right? They started putting on the safety caps.
I know that they got tampered with at one point. They had a massive recall.
People were spiking their packages.
I don't think people. It was probably like one.
Yeah, one person was spiking their packages and it was hurting people, so they did a massive recall and then they changed their safety. So I don't know if that counts, but they did a sweeping change to try to be on brand with protecting people.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, before we go too far down a rabbit hole where I'm just confusing myself. So I have a handful.
So did you
of
end up
things.
what did you do about
Went to bed and then woke up in the morning and then you said what I wanted because I didn't do anything. You're like, I think we should delete it. I was like, that feels, I wanted to, but I was in that person trap of look, I didn't say this joke, but if I had been in an environment and I chose to say this joke, I don't think it's really that bad. Like to be deeply disappointed in this joke is from my personal Charlie Hooper perspective, an overreaction. But I also wouldn't walk into a room of 3,000 strangers and be like 70,000 strangers and be like da 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 da, like because this is the other thing about communication is that there's an expected audience and a context for every communication, such that joke between me and people who understand me is totally fine. Or if I walk into if it's the opener to a speech that I have at a personal development, it's the worst, stupidest, meanest, unnecessary thing.
Well, Bill Burr talks about this. He says, if you come to my show that I'm hosting and you know it's me, and then you tell me I can't make a joke, you should just quietly leave. But if you hire me for a corporate event and ahead of time you say, here are the guidelines, they go from here to here, and then I step out of those guidelines, then you should come ream me, or you should ream me publicly. He said people confuse those two, so they'll heckle me at my own show instead of just leaving. This is my show. But if I come to your event and I agree to your rules and then I don't follow them, then I'm just being a dick. So yeah, I think even comedians understand there's a context with which certain things are appropriate.
I was dealing with that, is that because the email had landed in my personal inbox, it felt like it was a personal thing towards me, which is like, you can't do this and we are talking. And in that circumstance, it's like, if I had said this joke, I don't know that this would be a sorry moment. But given the context of where it occurred,
Well, maybe it was easier for me to make the call because people don't think it's me.
Yeah.
No one thought I posted it. But from my perspective, the call I made was delete it. And then someone on the team said, should we put a public apology? And I said, no, that's unnecessary and too far the other direction. Let's just take it down. Shouldn't have been posted. Now we have new guidelines for what to post. And then you just move on. Keep making charisma advice.
Well, we've talked about it in the past, but it really did make me think a lot about context. And I was like, do I stand behind this joke as an okay thing to say? And I was like, it really depends on where. And it really depends on what was said the second prior to this.
Right.
It depends on so many factors. And there's a circumstance in which I'm totally fine with this. And there's also a circumstance which is like this one where I'm like, this is a no for me. Well, in retrospect, in the morning when you said, I was like, yeah, that feels right given this particular context.
Yeah, I mean, all the comedians talk about this. When I was doing the video on Pete Davidson, he talks about he had this big to-do because he had people signing NDAs and putting their phones away in order to come to his show. And everyone's like, why were you doing that? He said, I get taken out of context all the time. People just take the worst sentence I say. They don't even bother to slap on the 4 sentences I said prior. And then they make me look like something that is completely unrepresentative of the experience you have if you're in the room. And his perspective was pretty interesting because he said, you might think that when a joke leaks, it's because someone was genuinely offended. And that happens some of the time. But also, people show up with notepads to my shows because of the no phone rule, which is why I started the NDA, because they are journalists that just know that if they take me out of context, they'll get clicks.
Yeah.
So they pay the ticket because the price of the ticket is worth less than the amount of money or esteem they'll get at their job to purposely take me out of context. He said, you don't just show up to a comedy show if you're there as a genuine participant with a notepad. And I'll just look and I'll just see people take notes. So he said, that's why I did the NDA.
Interesting.
So, because some journalists who that's how they make their money can appreciate how important removing context is.
Yeah. Well, it's like a weirdly innovative way to tell a lie is by putting quotes around something that was genuinely said. And it's for people who haven't thought, I think, deeply about the philosophy of communication, when you don't think that there is a necessary audience and there's a necessary context, that is a way to tell a lie, is to grab a chunk of what someone said, slap it in quotes. It could be the literal words that came out of their mouth, but represented as the truth of the situation. It's not. This was also like a theme in The Things They Carried, which is a Vietnam. It's like I don't know what it is. It's a fictional book about Vietnam by a guy who was in Vietnam, who at one point he's like, none of this happened, but it all happened, and this is the truest way I know how to say it. And it's, that was the first time I encountered, like, this isn't true, but it's creating the correct effect in you. And it's an interesting idea of where truth, at least in communication, lies. Is it in saying the words sterilely in print at 7 a.m. over coffee in front of somebody who wasn't at a comedy show? Yeah. Or is it, did you have to be there?
This is all the political stuff on Facebook is also dangerous for this. I remember the Rudy Giuliani clip that went around where he says there have not been, or what did it say? Barack Obama has been president for the worst terrorist attacks that the U.S. has ever dealt with, was his quote. Barack Obama is and everyone's like, except for 9/11. But if you watch the full clip, he literally says, with the exception of 9/11, Barack Obama is, and they just go, oh, we can just cut that. We don't have to include the with the exception of 9/11 part. And then we purposely make him look like an idiot. And then the text says, Rudy Giuliani forgot about 9/11. So you watch the full clip, then you remove the part where he says, except for 9/11, then you write in text, Rudy Giuliani forgot about 9/11, and then you release it out into the world for 1 million views. And the people who weren't there for the original part just take it. How could this possibly be a lie? It's a video. It's not a deep fake.
Yeah.
He's saying it. So it's the most convincing lie you could possibly have because it's
video.
That person speaking, and it seems so hard to imagine how it couldn't be what it's being presented as.
I often feel these days when I encounter stuff like a defense attorney, because I am imagining the most extreme circumstances, and I bet you I'm right a large portion of the time. Not that I nail the extreme circumstances, but why this thing that someone has been alleged or has said or was taken in this could have potentially been something else. And I'm constantly, I guess just because of my experiences on the web, like that is where my head goes of, and I'm sure that I'm wrong some of the time, that it is an accurate representation of what someone said, did, or felt.
Well, I think a lot of times in politics, people who have extremely strong feelings can very easily convince themselves the ends justify the means. So when Kavanaugh was being put up for Supreme Court, I'm not supporting him at all, but one of the people that came out with the stories about him, I believe she ended up saying, I made those stories up, but I just didn't want him to be a Supreme Court justice. It was so important that it was just obviously worth lying. And when people feel that way, then you have to assume there's bad actors out there. So when you see a random Facebook clip that seems really compelling, it's not impossible that somebody made this knowing it's a lie, but it's just more important that the people realize Rudy Giuliani is a bad guy. And I know he's a bad guy. They don't realize he's a bad guy. It's harder to convince them he's a bad guy with the truth. So I'll just do this lie because at the end of the day, they're getting the right impression. I'm not really lying because he is a bad guy, and that's what we're all solving for. So it's a very much an ends justifies the means mindset, I think.
Hope that you guys enjoyed that clip. If you want to see more like this and have us do more podcasts, we are 100% funded by our generous patrons. And if you'd like to contribute, there's a link in the description, and we'll have one pop up on the screen right here so that we can do more podcasts where we have fun conversations and hopefully some deep ones like this. Either way, hope that you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.